Today we want to beat every single Pokemon champion, and there is a lot of them, as Drake from the Orange Islands. Drake is a unique trainer in being extremely powerful, only losing to Ash in the series. If he does manage to beat them all, there's 3 powerful trainers he must face to claim victory. With some added rules for more difficulty, could Drake beat every Pokemon champion? First up is Pokemon Fire Red, and we have the champion for this game, Blue. We've got a really strong team actually, although some of our moves are questionable. Let's see how our first battle plays out. Blue's lead is his Pidgeot, and we lead off with our lead for this run, Ditto. The only thing we can do turn 1 is transform, and an Aerial Ace just really hurts us. We then Sand Attack, but Pidgeot has Keen Eye, so we take an Aerial Ace again. I then Whirlwind Pidgeot into Rhydon, and the next turn we get to lower his attack with a Feather Dance before we fall to a Rock Tomb. I now swap into Venusaur and set up the Sun with Sunny Day as he misses a Rock Tomb. We then take down Rhydon with one super effective Solar Beam. Out next, Blue chooses Alakazam, but it can't live to Venusaur's power and falls to a single Solar Beam too. Blue then sends back out Pidgeot, who takes a Solar Beam to just under half as it Sand Attacks us, but we connect our next Solar Beam to put it on just a sliver of HP as it goes for a Feather Dance. Blue 4 restores up Pidgeot, and I just start spamming Vine Whips to bring it low before Venusaur finally falls to Pidgeot. I now go into Electabuzz, whose moveset looks like this. Amazing, I know. And we connect a Thunderbolt on the full restore to take down Pidgeot. On Arcanine, we connect to Thunder and paralyze it as we take a Flamethrower in return. The next turn, a Thunder Punch finishes off Arcanine. Then is Exeggutor. We hit a Thunder again, and we get a Paralyze again as we get put to sleep. We burn a few turns of sleep as Exeggutor misses all of his attacks before we deliver a critical hit Thunder to take it down, leaving only a Blastoise left. I miss a Thunder and immediately die to a Hydro Pump. I then swap into Gengar as we then miss a Hypnosis and Blastoise sets up the Rain. We miss another Hypnosis and Blastoise misses a Hydro Pump. We then finally put it to sleep, and I realise I have Thunderbolt, so we start going for that in return. This brings Blastoise super low, which eats its berry, healing it a little bit. Then the next turn, Blue goes for a full restore as our Thunderbolt just brings him back down. Another heal and another Thunderbolt. But now Gengar can finally finish off Blastoise, defeating Blue and our first champion of the run. It's time to take on the Johto champion. Lance is a champion of Johto and the next we face. Our Dragonite is definitely going to be needed here, but I'm seeing some issues with our team already. But let's take him on. Lance leads off with Gyarados and we lead off with Ditto. We transform turn 1 and we intimidate Gyarados as Waterfall does nothing to us. We then both proceed to hit pretty pathetic Dragon Pulses at each other as Gyarados eventually critical hits us as I go for a Flail. Lance then doubles out into Aerodactyl as our Flail does nearly half to him. Then Aerodactyl just takes us out of a Thunderfang. I swap into Gengar, then we outspeed and we get to take it down with a Thunderbolt. Then is Charizard. It survives a Thunderbolt on 1 HP before hitting a Shadow Claw for big damage. Lance 4 restores, but we critical hit our next Thunderbolt to take him down. Then is his ace level 50 Dragonite. I Hypnosis to put it to sleep, and then we just spam Thunderbolts. It heals with its berry, but Dragonite never wakes up from its nightmare and Gengar gets to take it down. Then Lance sends out a level 49 Dragonite. I just went for a Thunderbolt for chip damage as it takes down Gengar with a Dragon Rush. Now I unleash our Dragonite. One Ice Beam takes him down. An Ice Beam then takes down Lance's last Dragonite, leaving only a weakened Gyarados left. Lance 4 restores, but a 4-time super effective Thunderbolt makes short work of him, defeating Lance with not many issues. It's time for Hoenn though, where 2 champions await us. In Pokemon Ruby, Steven is a champion. He has mainly Rock and Steel types. The issue is going to be our leads, and I'll tell you why. Steven's lead is a Skarmory, and we lead off with Ditto. Now thanks to my rules and your feedback, I don't switch out, so we transform as he hits Steel Wings and sets up Spikes. We manage to set up a max layer of Spikes, which is fantastic for chip damage, but then it becomes an exchange of very weak attacks. We eventually run out of PP quite quickly in our attacking moves, so we have to spam Toxic and Spikes that do nothing until Skarmory eventually takes us down. I now swap into Electabuzz and finish off Skarmory with a Thunder Punch. This brings out Aggron. I misplay trying to Thunder and we miss and take an Earthquake to a Sliver in return. We then connect a Thunderbolt and that takes down Aggron thanks to its low special defense. Third is his ace Metagross. A Thunderbolt brings him low before a Sidekick finishes off Electabuzz. I now go into Gengar and go for a Nightshade, forgetting it does a set amount of damage, and we take a Meteor Mash to the red and he raises his attack. On the full restore, I Thunderbolt, which is doing way more damage, and it's a 2-hit knockout, so Gengar gets to take down Metagross. Fourth is Claydol. We can't hurt it too much, so I just go for Nightshades as he starts to set up the screens, raising his team's special defense. He then kills Gengar with an Ancient Power. So I go into Venusaur and Vine Whip on the full restore for a critical hit. Then Steven heals again, and we keep Vine Whipping. A few more Vine Whips, and we take down Claydol. This brings out Steven's Ancient Bug Armaldo. I go for a Sunny Day as we take a weak Slash, then fire off a Solar Beam for big damage, and then we take an Aerial Ace low. A final Solar Beam, and we take down the Ancient Bug, leaving only a Cradily left. After spikes, our Solar Beam does enough damage to one-hit knock out Cradily, beating Steven, but we're not done in Hoenn yet, there's one more champion still to face. Our second champion for Generation 3 is Wallace. He's a Water-type specialist, and we've got great coverage for his team, so I'm not that worried about this fight. Let's give it a shot. Wallace's lead is a massive Wailord and Ditto transforms too, but we take a massive Water Spout, instantly crippling our Ditto. The next turn we hit a Blizzard, fishing for a freeze, and we get it, but Wailord instantly falls out and kills Ditto with a Blizzard. That's not great, but this gives us a switch into Electabuzz, who can hit a critical hit Thunderbolt to take down the huge whale. Second, Wallace sends out Gyarados, and a 4-time super effective Thunderbolt makes short work of him too. But then his Whiscash. We don't have any way to hit him thanks to having 4 electric moves, so he immediately kills Electabuzz with an Earthquake. I now go into Venusaur and we get to set up the Sun as he Amnesia's raising his special defense. We then hit a 4-time super effective Solar Beam to one-hit knock out the Catfish. Then Wallace chooses Milotic. It survives a Solar Beam on a sliver of HP and then hits a hard Ice Beam. Wallace full restores and we keep on attacking with Solar Beams. We don't do enough damage to take it out, so Wallace keeps on healing it. The Sun fades and I have to reset it up. The next turn we hit a much higher damage roll Solar Beam to finally take down the bulky Water type. This brings out Tentacruel. A Solar Beam does fantastic damage to him and an Ice Beam puts us in the red. Venusaur then picks up yet another knockout, leaving only a Ludicolo left. It can settle double teams, but it's Grass and Water type, so a neutral boosted Solar Beam from our absolute powerhouse Venusaur takes him down in an easy Wallace fight for once. It's time to take on Sinnoh's champion. Cynthia is the champion of the Sinnoh region. Her team is a powerful one. Our coverage is our strength, but I'm worried about a few of her Pokemon. Cynthia's lead is Spiritomb and Ditto transforms, but doesn't take a Dark Pulse well. We then Dark Pulse ourselves for pretty mediocre damage as Spiritomb outspeeds us and takes down Ditto. I send an Onix for some Limelight and we dig underground, but our weak attack stat shows here and we bring it low before a Dark Pulse just destroys us. Cynthia full restores, so Onix gets to hit a Rock Slide. We hit another Rock Slide and then we fall to Spiritomb. I send out Electabuzz to immediately take down Spiritomb, but then comes Garchomp and we can't do any damage to it, and Garchomp with its monstrous attack takes us down with an Earthquake. I send out our Dragonite now, who outspeeds Garchomp and takes him down with a 4-time super effective Ice Beam. Cynthia then sends out Lucario, who lives a Thunderbolt at below half and hits a Dragon Pulse for huge damage. A final Thunderbolt, and we are bringing this fight slowly back. Out comes Milotic, and we keep using our electric moves, but it's not enough to take it out, and an Ice Beam just destroys Dragonite. I go into Gengar, who also knows an electric move, and he takes down Milotic. Cynthia's 5th Pokemon is part Flying type, and a Thunderbolt brings him low as the Sidekick puts us on only 50 HP. A final Thunderbolt, and this fight is starting to look a lot better for us. Out comes Roserade, who we put to sleep straight away, and we start Nightshading. We bring Roserade to the yellow before Cynthia full restores on our Nightshades, meaning an Energy Ball just finishes off Gengar. I go into Venusaur and a Vine Whip does literally like 1 damage as we take a massive extra sensory attack. I then choose to set up the Sun with Sunny Day, and the next extra sensory puts us on only 9 HP. Luckily we are faster, so a Solar Beam finishes off Cynthia in a very close battle. On to Unova now, where 2 more champions await us. First up in Generation 5 is Alder, and he's got some solid Pokemon with definitely a bug theme going on. The lack of fire moves might hurt us here, and yep, the lack of fire coverage did. We can only get to a Scavalier and we just barely with a Venusaur. We only have grass moves too, and we genuinely do like negative damage. I somehow need to keep someone else alive to stand a chance. Attempt 2, Alder's lead of a Selgor means Ditto can instantly transform thanks to Imposter, rather than waste a turn using Transform. We hit a Bug Buzz for great damage before a Bug Buzz brings us low too. We win the speed tie the next turn and Ditto picks up its first knockout. Then comes Volcarona. We go for me first and use Overheat for good damage, then Volcarona overheats us to take down Ditto. Our best swapping is Onix. We're very fragile still, as a -2 Bug Buzz does a tremendous amount of damage before a Rock Slide picks up the knockout. Then comes Drudigon, who we hit with a Rock Slide for good damage before falling to an Outrage. I go into our Dragonite now and immediately deal with his threat with an Ice Beam, but this brings out Alder's Ice Scream Vanillix. We Thunderbolt for good damage and paralyze him as he gets Parahaxed. I then Hyper Beam, but he lives on 1 HP, hits the Blizzard, and that just one hit knocks out Dragonite. I send out Electabuzz as Alder for restores, and our Thunderbolt brings him down and paralyzes him again. I Thunderbolt into the red and he gets haxed again, so our Electabuzz picks up the knockout. On Bouffalant, we Thunderbolt before instantly dying to a single Earthquake. I go into Gengar and Thunderbolt again as we then get hit by a Stone Edge. Luckily, our next Thunderbolt critical hits, meaning we have Gengar for a Scavalier. We hit a Hypnosis, luckily, and we get to put it to sleep. We Thunderbolt for good damage, and then we Thunderbolt again. Then a Scavalier wakes up and Iron Heads us for the knockout, leaving us with only a Venusaur left again. I go for a Sunny Day as he Giga Impacts for massive damage, but we just have just enough damage to take down a Scavalier and beat Alder, but not convincingly. We still have one more champion left in Univers to face. Iris is the second champion and the majority of her Pokemon are dragons. We've got solid coverage with our own Dragonite. Let's give the champion of dragons a shot. Iris's lead is Hydreigon and our Ditto instantly transforms to them. We take a Dragon Pulse, putting us extremely low, and our Dragon Pulse puts them on a Sliver too. Iris full restores, but we bring it straight back down. Then, once again, we luckily win the speed tie to take down the first of the dragons. This brings out Drudigon. We are faster than this too, and we do some serious damage, literally putting her on 1 HP before we fall to a Rock Slide. We send out Onix and Rock Slide to take down Drudigon. This brings out Lapras though. Our Rock Slide does fantastic damage, but we're just too frail, meaning we can't take an Ice Beam and we fall. I send out Electabuzz next and Thunderbolt to revenge kill Lapras, then is Aggron. We hit a Thunderbolt and do great damage as it just goes for an Automize, but a slow Pokemon is still a slow Pokemon. Electabuzz outspeeds and takes it down. This then brings out a Ace Haxorus. We do really low damage with a Thunderbolt before we instantly die to an Earthquake. We then go into our own Dragon and we hit a 4-time super effective Ice Beam to take her out. This leaves just an Archeops left. One final Ice Beam and we take down Archeops and beat Iris in a pretty easy battle. It's time to head to Kalos and the 3DS games next. Diantha is the champion of Kalos and who we take on next. Her team's pretty strong and she's got a Mega Gardevoir that it doesn't look like we have a solid answer for. Holucha is a lead and Ditto hits a Flying Press for actually better damage than I thought as Holucha Swords Dances. That's not good. Then Holucha hits a Poison Jab for massive damage as our Flying Press brings him to a Sliver. Diantha now burns a full restore, healing Holucha as our Poison Jab doesn't do anything. Then Holucha outspeeds us and takes us out of a Poison Jab. I now send out Electabuzz, who hits a Thunderbolt to take down the Luchador bird. Diantha then sends out Tyrantrum and the T-Rex. We hit a Thunderbolt for great damage as he connects a critical hit Head Smash to take us out, and he survives a recoil on a Sliver. Always a Sliver. Here with Venusaur, I decide to go for a Sunny Day so we can use Solar Beam as he hits another Head Smash for big damage. But we just hold on and he goes back to being extinct to recoil. Then is Aurorus, the Ice Dinosaur, but it's part Rock type too, so a Solar Beam from our Monster Grass type takes it down. This brings out Gudra. We actually can't attack this thing due to Sap Sipper raising his attack stat. Then a Fire Blast in the sun is for sure enough to take down Venusaur. I'm running out of options, so I go into Onix. Our Rock Slide does good damage and even in the sun and muddy water just takes us out. Onix is so frail. This is looking bad now. I have to go into Dragonite, then we go for an Ice Beam. It brings Gudra low as we take a Dragon Pulse to nearly half. Diantha full restores, but our Ice Beam brings her to what looks like exactly half. A final Ice Beam and we barely take down Gudra. Then out comes Galgeist, who's nowhere near as bulky as Gudra and falls to a single Ice Beam, leaving only a Gardevoir left. But Diantha Mega Evolves her, powering her up as our Hyper Beam that looks fantastic does half damage to her, meaning a Moonblast from a Mega equals a dead Dragonite. We only have Gengar left and he for sure can't take a Psychic attack. If we Hypnosis we might miss and we need a little chip before Thunderbolt can kill. I go for a Confuse Ray and Gardevoir does in fact hit themselves in confusion, and with that Thunderbolt does just enough damage to take down Mega Gardevoir, defeating Diantha and Kalos. It's time to set sail to Alola. How is the person we fight to become champion here, and he's always one of the most trickiest. His team really does pack a punch. Incineroar is a massive threat and its Z move, but so is half of his team. This could be rough. How's lead is an Alolan Raichu, giving us a pretty cool Pokemon to use with Ditto transforming. Although we both can't hurt each other as I exchange Psychics and Thunderbolts with Raichu, both of us us doing roughly the same damage. Eventually we're both really low and Raichu has been faster. I go for a Thunderbolt and Hal actually switches his Raichu into Incineroar as we critically hit our Thunderbolt. That was insanely lucky. We then connect a Focus Blast for Ditto to take out probably one of the biggest threats on his team. This then brings out Tauros, another huge threat. Ditto outspeeds and connects yet another Focus Blast for a straight up one hit knockout, and Ditto's finally shown its power. Then out comes Noivern, who is unfortunately much faster than our Ditto and takes us out with a Dark Pulse, but that's the best start we could ask for. I now go into my own Dragonite as Noivern hits us with a super effective Dragon Pulse, bringing us low as our Ice Beam demolishes him as he's 4 times weak to ice. This then brings out the Ice Crab Crabominable. I go for a last hurrah by going for a Hyper Beam, which looks fantastic and does solid damage, but not enough as an Ice Hammer connects and takes down our dragon. I then swap into Onix, who connects an Iron Tail and picks up a knockout for itself. Hal sends in Leafeon, and it's faster, and we know how frail Onix is, so just one Leaf Blade even with our high defense, and down he goes. Leafeon resists all 3 of my last Pokemon, so our best bet is Gengar. We Confuse Ray to confuse him and he hits himself. He then breaks through, but just Baby Doll's Eyes, reducing our attack stat. Our best way to hit him is Nightshade, which does a set amount of damage and is a 3-hit knockout. We bring him to the red with Nightshades as he breaks through confusion again and Leaf Blades us, but Curse Body activates, so now he can't attack us. So Hal swaps into his Alolan Raichu, who immediately falls to a Nightshade. He comes back into Leafeon and decides to not give up and use another full restore as we just Nightshade. We Nightshade again, putting in 1 hit off losing as a Leaf Blade puts Gengar low. A final Nightshade and we take down Leafeon, beating Hal in actually a very convincing win thanks to Ditto. It's time to head back to Kanto and the Switch games. So for Trace we have a full team of Pokemon for once, which is fantastic, although his team can be pretty easy usually. Let's destroy Trace. The battle starts off by Trace Mega Evolving his Pidgeot into Mega Pidgeot, although we don't take an Air Slash that well. This means when Ditto does transform, as there's no abilities in this game, we transform into a Mega Pidgeot. The next turn we hit an Air Slash for good damage as we take yet another Air Slash. The following turn Trace pulls a double on us, switching into his ace Pokemon Jolteon, and we do a tiny bit with Air Slash. We then proceed to dodge a Thunder and hit a Heat Wave for good damage. We dodge another Thunder and Heat Wave again to bring Jolteon to the red. Trace now full restores his Jolteon and we just keep on attacking him. Eventually though, Jolteon does connect to Thunder and takes down Ditto. I decide to go into Onix now. We take a Pin Missile, barely scratching our rock before digging underground. We dodge the next attack and deliver a devastating dig for the 1-hit knockout. Then is Vileplume. It's the same strategy for Jolteon here. We dig underground as Vileplume reflects, making our attacks now do less damage, but our digs still do over 25%. The only attacking move Vileplume has is Solar Beam, and as we are digging it can never touch us really, so eventually we take it down without taking any damage. Then is Slowbro. Our Rock Slide does nearly 50% to Slowbro as the Surf puts us extremely low. We Rock Slide again, putting Slowbro in the red, and we get a flinch perfect. Trace now uses one of the 5,000 restores he has and we miss a Rock Slide, so RNG comes full circle. We connect a last attack before Slowbro finally takes down Onix with a Surf on the waves. I now decide to go into Electabuzz. While this is an easy knockout on Slowbro from a Thunderbolt, then comes Rapidash the Fire Horse. A Thunderbolt brings him to below half as a Flare Blitz doesn't do too much to us. A final Thunderbolt attack and we take down Rapidash. Then is a brick wall for us shortly after, Marowak. We have 0 moves to attack him with, so we have to sit there and let him slowly kill our Electabuzz with Boomerangs, and eventually he falls. Now I go into Venusaur. With no sunny day, I charge a Solar Beam turn 1 as we take a Fire Punch and eat it like it's nothing. Then our Solar Beam just leaving only 1 Pokemon left, Mega Pidgeot. We Solar Beam as Trace hits an Air Slash for good damage before our final attack connects the next turn to take down Pidgeot and beat Trace. Now it's time to head to Gala and take on Sword and Shield's champion. The champion for Sword and Shield is Leon. His team is really strong with a Gigantamax Charizard. The power creep could catch us off guard here. Leon's lead is his Aegislash, and I don't know if this is a bug or just how Imposter works with Aegislash's ability, but Aegislash King Shield and we Shadow Ball, but we don't change stances. It's pretty weird. Then we hit a Shadow Ball on Aegislash for very little damage, but we get the special defense drop as Aegislash's Shadow Ball does way more to us. Then Aegislash King Shield again, making sure we can't do big damage as his defenses are raised, but we do bring him to the red before Aegislash finishes off our Ditto with a Shadow Ball. I decide now to send out Onix, and there's only 2 words for this: Stealth and Rocks, to set up hazards to hurt the whole of Leon's team as Aegislash's Flash Cannon just obliterates us, but your sacrifice won't be in vain, Onix. I now go into Gengar and we can finish off Aegislash with a Nightshade, and the animation looks really cool actually. I've never used this move in Gen 8 before. Leon now sends out Haxorus and it's gonna kill us, question is when. It takes Stealth Rocks damage, then we confuse it with Confuse Ray and Haxorus does doesn't care, proceeds to break through and one-shot us with an earthquake. We've lost half of our team already and only took down one of Leon's. I'm looking at my team and I need to save Dragonite and Electabuzz, so we go into Venusaur. I set up a Sunny Day as thankfully Haxorus hits itself in confusion. The next turn we can hit a resisted Solar Beam that still does a good amount of damage considering, and Haxorus snaps out of confusion and hits a massive outrage, bringing us low. A final Solar Beam from Venusaur and we take down Haxorus, but this just brings out a faster dragon in Dragapult, who now has a Sun Up, and a boosted Flamethrower definitely takes us down. I decide to go into my own dragon in Dragonite now. Dragapult is faster and a Dragon Breath does close to half as our Ice Beam just demolishes him, giving us another knockout. But this then brings out Mr. Rhyme, the dancing Mr. Mime. We can't take it out in one move, so our best option as always is to go for a Hyper Beam. And after Stealth Rocks, we bring him super low, but it's not enough and Freeze Dry KOs our dragon, leaving us with one Pokemon versus his 3. But I've saved Electabuzz for last for a reason. We Thunderbolt Mr. Rhyme to take it down, leaving Leon with 2 Pokemon both weak to Electric. First is Inteleon, and after Stealth Rock's damage, a Thunderbolt is enough to take it down, leaving us with a 1-on-1. Leon sends out Charizard, who immediately takes 50% thanks to Onix's sacrifice. Charizard Gigantamaxes, raising his HP a little bit, but our quick and powerful Electabuzz takes it down with a Thunderbolt, beating Leon and becoming champion of Gala. It's time for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's champion. The last champion is Geeta for Generation 9, and she's got some really unique Pokemon. We've had to say goodbye to Onix, and luckily, according to Bulbapedia, Drake had one Pokemon, Rhyhorn, although not much of it is known. Her lead is Espartha and Ditto transforms. Espartha is faster and a Dazzling Gleam hurts us as our Dazzling Gleam does roughly the same amount. Espartha Dazzling Gleams us again and I go for a Lumina Crash, doing less damage but lowering the special defense harshly. Then we outspeed the Psychic Ostrich and take it out with an overkill critical hit Dazzling Gleam. But this just brings out King Gambit, who we Dazzling Gleam immediately for a bit of chip damage before succumbing to a Katal Cleave. I now give Rhyhorn its time to shine. We Earthquake to put King Gambit on just a sliver of HP as his Iron Head does massive damage, but Rhyhorn survives on 8 HP himself, wanting to make a good first impression. Then the next turn we can take it down with an Earthquake. Geeta now sends out Veluza the Psychic Fish and it just quickly takes us out of a priority Aqua Jet. I choose Electabuzz as my answer and we Thunderbolt, and that's enough damage to take down the Psychic Fish. This brings out the bulky Avalugg, who's not bulky especially defensively as our Thunderbolt does big damage and then we take an Avalanche for big damage also. Thanks to us being faster, we get to take down the Ice Slab the next turn. Then Geeta sends out Go-Goat, who resists all 4 of our electric moves. A Thunderbolt barely scratches the Goat as a Horn Leech takes us out and restores a tad bit of his HP too. I now go into Dragonite however, and we shoot a Freezing Ice Beam to take the Goat down low, as he doesn't attack us and bulks up instead. So the next turn we just get to take down the Goat without taking any damage. This leaves Geeta's last Pokemon, Andace Glamora. She terastallizes into a pure Rock type, but we are faster and an Ice Beam does a good okay amount of damage and we snag a freeze perfect. Our next Ice Beam does a solid amount, bringing her lower as she stays frozen. Our third Ice Beam then critical hits to take down Glamora, beating Geeta and every single Pokemon champion as Drake. Or have we? Atop of the snowy Mount Silver is a legendary trainer Red and a champion trainer. Red leads off with his ace Pikachu and our lead is Ditto. We don't even get to transform before a Volt Tackle obliterates us and does big recoil to Pikachu. I then go into Venusaur and straight away I Sunny Day to get rid of the pesky hail as Pikachu Iron Tails us and lowers our defense. But the next turn we can hit a Solar Beam to finish off Pikachu. Red sends out Charizard next and we've boosted the Sun. We hit a Solar Beam for basically nothing before dying to an Air Slash. Then I send out Gengar. We outspeed Charizard and take it down with a Thunderbolt. Then Red sends out Lapras. We hit a Thunderbolt, bringing it low before taking a super effective Psychic to bring Gengar to under half 2. A final Thunderbolt and we take down the Transport Pokemon. Out next is Blastoise, who barely hangs on from a Thunderbolt before connecting a Blizzard and freezing us at 10 HP. Red 4 restores and we stay frozen. We then 4 out, Thunderbolt again and critical hit Blastoise, so our RNG has come full circle. Red sends out Snorlax and we confuse Ray and it hits himself. We then get off more chip damage with a Thunderbolt before Snorlax finishes off Gengar with a Shadow Ball. We now send out Onix and hit a Rock Slide, flinching Snorlax. We Rock Slide again, flinching him again, but our damage is just so low. Red 4 restores Snorlax and I just decide to use Bind for once before dying to a single Blizzard attack. I go into Electabuzz now and running out of options. Our Thunderbolt does an okay amount of damage and we take a crunch for a lot, but we get static off him, paralysing him. We Thunderbolt again and we take one more crunch to near the end as our next Thunderbolt puts him on 1 HP and luckily he gets para-haxed. Red then full restores Snorlax again, and our next Thunderbolt does a little. We just keep attacking and we get the paralysis off once more before we fall to a crunch. Our last hope is Dragonite, who hits a T-Bolt putting Snorlax on a sliver, but we luckily dodge a Blizzard. Our Ice Beam puts him on 1 HP, but we dodge yet another Blizzard, meaning we got super lucky. Last is Venusaur, who can't take an Ice Beam nearly as well as Snorlax, but puts us to sleep. We stay asleep and take a Sludge Bomb. We stay asleep again and take another Sludge Bomb. We can't take another hit, but luckily we wake up and take down Venusaur, beating Red in a very close fight. Team Plasma N and a champion himself, who also has a legendary we need to win to continue. N leads with Reshiram and we lead off with Ditto, which means we have a Reshiram. Although it's bad for both of us, as Reshiram's Fusion Flare does nothing and I set up a Reflect for some reason. Then Reshiram extra sensories us as we hit him back with the same move. We exchange moves once more, but Reshiram wins the speed tie and Hyper Beams Ditto for the kill. We send out Onix on the turn he's recharging, and you can see our attack is so low, we don't kill it. We Rock Slide once more and we take an extra century, but Reshiram ends up killing Onix too. We then send out Gengar to finish it off with a Thunderbolt. Caracosta comes out and a Thunderbolt takes into his Sturdy as we live a crunch. We then finish him off. Out third is Archeops, who is weak to electric, and Gengar picks up the KO here too. Fourth is Klinklang, who's actually Zoroark, and tanks a hit and finishes Gengar with a Night Slash. I go into Electabuzz now and take down Zoroark with my favourite move this run, Thunderbolt. Klinklang takes massive damage and Metal Sounds us, but we just take it down with no issues, leaving only a Vanillix left. We Thunderbolt for close to half before a Blizzard just one-shots us, leaving us with 2 Pokemon both weak to ice. But Dragonite can finish the fight, winning it with a Hyper Beam, leaving one champion left to face. Kieran, the most latest champion to be introduced and one of the hardest. This has a focus on double battles. Honestly, this fight was impossible. So for the first attempts, I could barely make it past his first 2 Pokemon without nearly losing all of my team. Then on Incineroar and Grimmsnarl, we just have no chance. 23 attempts later and it still wasn't happening. At this point, I stopped leading with Ditto and tried other leads too. I also decided to try and give the Pokemon a bit better moves, as it was quite clear we're struggling with Gen 1 movesets. They just don't work well in this format. We did manage to make it to Hydrapple this time, but we just took way too much damage, and Venusaur's moveset is just so limiting. While we can bring Hydrapple low, we can't survive 2 Pokemon just beating on us. This is the hardest Kieran fight I've ever had. It's not until attempt 40 we get some sort of a battle, and I'll explain what happened. We lead off with Ditto and Electabuzz into Politoed and Dragonite. Ditto will transform into Dragonite, and this is the best strategy there is. We Thunderbolt Politoed, but its Wakamberry means it tanks it reasonably well. Then Politoed Ice Beams our Ditto, but we survive it thanks to Multiscale. Thankfully, we outspeed the other Dragonite to take down Politoed with a Thunder. If we didn't, we just lost there. Before a breaking swipe from Dragonite takes down our Dragonite and does good damage to Electabuzz, but we get the static proc, so he's paralyzed. That's also best case scenario. We now send out our Dragonite as Kieran goes into a monster Porygon Z. Electabuzz outspeeds him and hits a Thunderbolt for great damage before a Hyper Beam from Porygon Z just destroys Electabuzz. Dragonite's Dragon Pulse then deals with a Porygon Z, and Dragonite gets para-haxed. This is the RNG we need to stand a small chance. I now go into Rhyhorn as Kieran sends out Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl sets up a Reflect as Dragonite's Ice Beam breaks Dragonite's Multiscale. Rhyhorn can then finish off Dragonite with an Ice Fang. But now is Kieran's Incineroar, who intimidates us, lowering Rhyhorn's attack. I get faked out on Dragonite, and then Grimmsnarl's Spirit Break takes Dragonite low and lowers our special attack not great, before an Earthquake does very little damage to his Pokemon. This time Dragonite can Dragon Pulse Incineroar, activating his Citrus Berry, healing him back up before a Darkest Lariat knocks out our Dragonite, and a Spirit Break from Grimmsnarl does a little chunk to Rhyhorn, before our Earthquake critical hits Incineroar, taking him out, which again, the RNG is just nuts, but it's exactly what we need. With Incineroar down, it's safe to go into Venusaur as Kieran sends out his last Pokemon, Hydrapple. He terrestrializes into a pure fighting type as Grimmsnarl Sucker Punches Venusaur, as Venusaur's Sludge Bomb takes out Grimmsnarl, giving us a 2v1 versus Hydrapple. Now we miss a Rock Slide with Rhyhorn though before he dies to an Earth Power, but our last Pokemon is Gengar, who has a smooth sidekick now, which we hit and critical hit again for over half of his HP as a Sludge Bomb brings him to a Sliver and poisons, as Hydrapple's Earth Power puts Gengar on 5 HP, but we survive it. This means Hydrapple dies to poison, and with that we beat Kieran and defeat every single Pokemon champion as Drake. The Kieran fight was one of the most hardest and painful ones I've ever done to this date. We had to switch up a few moves or it just was not possible, and even then we still needed insane RNG to stand even a chance with paralysis and critical hits, but we made it through. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe if you're new. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.